What is up, boys and girls? Lundrick here, and now I'm back with another edition of Lundrick's Fear Fights, and obviously we're coming up to WrestleMania, so it's pretty logical to do WrestleMania shows. Last week we did WrestleMania matches, and this week WrestleMania shows. Now, not sure if I'm going to do any more Fear Fights after WrestleMania. I'm considering putting it on the back burner for a little while. I just really can't think of that many interesting ideas anymore, and I've done quite a few, so yeah, I'm not certain this might be the last Fear Fight for quite some time, but I haven't decided that yet. And now next week we're going to do a WrestleMania 35 preview / predictions video. That's probably going to be a long video. Possibly do NXT TakeOver New York preview predictions, but I haven't 100% decided on that yet. So look out for that. And yeah, just before we go, let's talk about some honorable mentions. Just one major point I want to make, guys. There's been 34 WrestleManias, and I can only fit 5 onto a Fear 5 list, so that means 29 WrestleManias are going to miss out. So one of your favourite WrestleManias is bound not to be on this list, so just bear that in mind. And I'm going to address 2 big notable omissions right now, because these are the 2 I'm going to get asked about. And omitted is WrestleMania 30, because I imagine that's going to be on most people's lists, but it hasn't quite made mine. It nearly made mine. Just one, I just like the other WrestleManias better. 2, this isn't really my era growing up watching wrestling, because I was already adult by the time this match took place. This event took place. Awesome event, don't get me wrong. But yeah, like I said, I like the others better, and I didn't really grow up on this era of wrestling. So, and then on the other side of the coin, WrestleMania 3 is not on this list for a similar reason. Of course, WrestleMania 3, this is before my time watching wrestling, and obviously in 1987 I wasn't a wrestling fan back then. I was about 6 months old when that show took place, so I never watched WrestleMania 3 till about, dare say I didn't see WrestleMania 3 until about 96, 97 probably. But that's one of the ones, if I grew up with WrestleMania 3, that might arguably be number 1, but it's not. So those are for WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 30, and not really my era, so that's why those WrestleManias aren't on the list, but obviously on a lot of people's lists they would be there. A couple of other honourable mentions: WrestleMania 7, WrestleMania 28, believe it or not, WrestleMania 22, WrestleMania 21, and that's about it, guys. So let's get on to the actual video. Coming at number 5, we're going back to WrestleMania 24 in 2008. This pay-per-view was absolutely outstanding in my opinion. This was one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. Apart from WrestleMania 30 and maybe even WrestleMania 31, the last really awesome WrestleMania ever. Just overall, just a fantastic card, I think late 2007, early 2008, WWE really picked up the game after a generally mediocre 2006 and 2007. They had a really nice roster at the time, a mix of veterans and younger guys. And yeah, as a result of that, they had a fantastic show. This was in Orlando, Florida. What's the name of the stadium? I can't even remember. Forgot the name of the stadium now. But it's the same one they went to WrestleMania 33 at. Fuck. Totally forgot the name of the stadium now for some reason. But yeah, so overall, great card. We kick off with a really underappreciated opener, I think, now. JBL versus Finlay. I think I like this match even more now than I did back then. It's just one of those matches where it's just 2 rough bastards just beating the crap out of each other and having a stiff, believable match. A Belfast Brawl. Just a really underrated match, one of the most underrated openers in WrestleMania history, probably looking back now. I think it's definitely gotten more underrated with time, put it that way. Then we had awesome Money in the Bank ladder match of, let's see, CM Punk, Chris Jericho, John Morrison, Carlito, Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and Mr. Kennedy. So a really nice cast of characters there. I mean, there's some absolutely awesome spots in there. Awesome Tower of Doom with Shelton, Kennedy, and Morrison. John Morrison moonsaulting off the ropes with a ladder in his hand. Stuff like, well, the ladders were connected together, then one teetered over, and then John Morrison, because it wasn't, set up properly, so John Morrison tried to climb it, which was cool. Then Shelton Benjamin being knocked off ladder over the ropes onto a ladder from the guardrail of the ring, just awesome stuff. And the real awesome surprise to CM Punk winning, because that really was a surprise at the time, because Punk was just an ECW at the time, and he'd had high profile problems with the company in that time. I mean, a lot of people in the company didn't like CM Punk. I don't think anyone's really expecting CM Punk to win this match, because of course originally Jeff Hardy was supposed to, but then Jeff Hardy got his 60-day suspension a few weeks before the show. So I remember at the time thinking probably MVP was going to win it. That was my prediction anyway, but CM Punk won it, which was pretty damn cool, to be fair. Then we do get a little bit of a dip. I mean, Batista Umaga has to be the real disappointing match of the night. It wasn't a terrible match by any means. It just was, it was just kind of mediocre, to be honest. Then we had Kane squashing Chavo Guerrero in 9 seconds with the ECW title, which admittedly I think, kind of devalued the ECW title. Kind of just reinforced the message. Yeah, there's ECW things. C-brand, no one gives a shit. Just, let's just throw it, give it a bone throw it on the WrestleMania card. But of course, I think what the show's most remembered for, the career threatening match between Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. The last match of Ric Flair's career. Wink, wink. But in all seriousness, I mean, I know Flair wrestled after this, but this was, to be fair, this was Flair's last match in the WWE. WWE never booked him as a wrestler after that. It was obviously one of Shawn Michaels' classic WrestleMania matches, what he's known for. Wasn't a perfect match by any means. I mean, come on, Ric Flair was 59 years old. So obviously you weren't going to see Ric Flair of 1989, 2008. But I think Ric Flair, everything he had left in the tank he gave. There were some sloppy moments at times, sure, but I think there's an overall story in the ring. I think it was absolutely magnificent. And I thought the finish with the "I'm sorry, I love you" thing was just perfect. Perfect way for Ric Flair to end his career. And like I say, it's just a shame that he didn't. He went back, wrestled on the Hulk Hogan Australia tour in 2009, and then TNA run. Let's just pretend. So I'd just like to pretend that never happened, really. But yeah, that's obviously Michaels Flair WrestleMania 24. One of my favourite WrestleMania matches, really. It's just an awesome match. And then after that, we got the Playboy Bunny Mania match with Beth Phoenix and Melina against Maria and Ashley. Snoop Dogg was involved. It just wasn't very good. It wasn't terrible. I mean, I've seen much worse women's matches at WrestleMania in the olden days, but this match was just not very good. In the last ever WWE Playboy tie, because obviously WWE went PG that year, and when you go PG, you can't be having your women naked in magazines, can you? Then I think the last 3 matches were all really good in their own way, all different. So, triple threat match for the WWE title, Randy Orton, John Cena, Triple H. That was a surprisingly short match. It went 14 minutes. But especially considering who was in, arguably the 3 top stars of the company at the time. Really surprised how short it was. But to the credit, they had an absolute blinder as well. They had a great match, I thought, a really entertaining match. I know later on, 2009, people were so sick and tired of seeing combinations of Triple H, John Cena, and Randy Orton fighting each other, and they became oh god, this again. But at WrestleMania 24, it was still a relatively fresh angle. I mean, Cena and Orton certainly hadn't exhausted their options yet. Triple H and Orton maybe arguably had, but then you add Cena to the mix, because this all came around Cena's shock return at the Royal Rumble. Because I imagine up until then it was probably just going to be Triple H and Randy Orton one-on-one. But then John Cena comes back, and I think a lot of people thought when Cena came back, Triple H was probably going to win the title elimination chamber, and it was going to be Cena Triple H. But then that never happened. And we got this match, and what was really cool, you look at that John Cena, Triple H, you're thinking either one of them two is definitely going to win. But no, Randy Orton got the win. I mean, arguably the biggest win of his career, really, if you think about it. Beating John Cena and Triple H at a WrestleMania. Yeah, pretty cool. And then, obviously, the big attraction match was the Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather. Yes, that Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, I mean, probably the most entertaining celebrity match ever, to be fair. You got, I mean, a lot of people might not like Floyd Mayweather, and that's fine. I mean, I understand that, but he brought it to this WWE match, him and the Big Show. Obviously, it wasn't like a 5-star classic or Omega or Carter style match, but for what it was, of a 420-pound guy like the Big Show versus a 5'7", 156-pound Mayweather, they had a pretty entertaining match. I mean, surely it was all like really rehearsed and stuff like that, but I mean, yeah, they really did deliver on the night. It was exactly what it was supposed to be, and like I say, probably the best celebrity match ever, to be fair. And after all that, The Undertaker and Edge had a hell of a task main event in this show. We'd already seen so much good shit, so could they end the show on a high note? And for me, the answer was absolutely yes. I mean, this was another awesome match. I mean, this is right in the middle of Undertaker's really hot streak. So, say from WrestleMania 23 to WrestleMania 29, Undertaker had an outstanding match at every WrestleMania. And this was one of them, yeah, because obviously more remembered are the Shawn Michaels matches and the Triple H matches. But this was an awesome match as well. I mean, I think it was SmackDown main event in WrestleMania, which was cool at the time, because that was quite unexpected. Because remember at the time, I fully expected the WWE title match to go on last. So I see this match going last was really cool. I mean, I think Edge that night was absolutely outstanding. I'm just so glad that Edge main event in WrestleMania at least once in his career. And you got to do it with The Undertaker, and it was a really great match. I mean, it started out really slow, but it built up into a fantastic match. And of course, The Undertaker went over with Hell's Gate to become the World Heavyweight Champion for the second WrestleMania in a row. And just a great way to end the show, really. And if you haven't seen this WrestleMania before, I think you should definitely check it out. It's really, really, really good. Coming at number 4, we're going to go back 10 years to WrestleMania 14 in 1998, right in the Attitude Era. So, yeah, for me, this is probably one of the most important WrestleManias of all time. I mean, obviously, the first one, that goes without saying, and I think the one that everyone talks about, WrestleMania 3, that's the one that really brought WrestleMania up to a new level. But I think this is the show that kind of brought the prestige back to WrestleMania, because I think it's well documented WWE's steady decline in the 1990s. So you had a few lean years of WrestleMania just not really feeling like WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 11, WrestleMania 12, WrestleMania 13 just did not feel like big events. And now this show comes along, and I think this is definitely a big launching pad for the WWF, which I'll explain in a minute. Because obviously with Mike Tyson coming in, that brought so many new eyeballs to the product. I mean, this was a time where Monday Night War was probably at its full of swing. It's been around a while. WWF was losing it to WCW for 2 years. But in late 97, early 98, there was a big comeback. Momentum was definitely on the rise of the WWF with Stone Cold Steve Austin, with D-Generation X, with The Undertaker and Kane. The Attitude Era really starting. A lot more fans were tuning to the WWF. So with Tyson's involvement, a lot more people are going to watch WrestleMania 14. So they really had to knock it out of the park and have an excellent show. And they did, and after that, more people went to WWF, and the rest is history. So the put into perspective the difference. So in the pre-pay-per-view and the pre-network era, where pay-per-view buyers were important, the lowest bought WrestleMania of all time prior to the WWE Network becoming a thing, because since like WrestleMania 30, I've not really had a look at the buy rates anymore, but because obviously most people just watch it on the network nowadays. So WrestleMania 13, 1997, WrestleMania 13 drew 230,000 buys, so a really poor number, and that's where the WrestleMania thing bottomed out. So a year later, WrestleMania 14 drew 730,000 buys, so more than triple the buy rate. So this really revolved around Austin, Tyson, Michaels, mega main event, which we'll get to. But they have to be the rest of the card as well. You can't just live and die off your main event. You've got to deliver a good card overall. And for me, this show absolutely did. And I think what I loved as well about this show is, like, probably the top 5 or 6 matches, they all had a really good build-ups to it. I mean, you can look back and watch it, but I remember at the time thinking, wow, some really hot feuds going at the time. So we kick off with probably the worst match of the night there. 15-team battle royal to open up the show. I mean, so there you go, guys. Even back then, WWF would do whatever they could to get everybody on WrestleMania. That's not just a new thing. 15 tag teams with the return of the Legion of Doom becoming, oh god, LOD 2000. Yeah, I'd just rather not remember that LOD 2000 run. It was just a standard battle royal. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't good. Then a match which is kind of weird looking back. This was a WrestleMania match, but it's not a criticism either, because I think it's actually kind of cool that it was. For the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship, Taka Michinoku versus Ogura. I mean, yeah, so Taka and Ogura had a WrestleMania singles match. That's kind of awesome. And the match was basically a 5-minute sprint. I mean, just have some fast-paced action, guys get all the moves in, that sort of thing. Then I think everything after this was a really important and a really good match. So Triple H, Owen Hart for the European title. I mean, I thought this was a really good match. I think this is definitely one of the most underrated matches in WrestleMania history, because obviously you had 2 much bigger matches of the night, but this was just a really good wrestling match, you know what I mean? This was obviously after the Montreal Screwjob, so when Owen Hart was in the WWF by himself. I mean, obviously Triple H was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger in DX. Then you had the whole thing with Sergeant Slaughter handcuffed himself to Chyna, so Chyna not being able to interfere, but of course she does. She throws powder in Slaughter's eyes and then whacks Owen Hart in the balls, and then Triple H wins. The next match is an interesting one, a mixed tag team match with Goldust and Luna Vachon versus Mark Mero and Sable. In Sable's first ever official wrestling match. I mean, I probably said it before, so I don't really need to go into detail again. Just how hot and over Sable was in 1998. I mean, not even funny how popular she was in 1998. You know, she came in as a manager of Mark Mero, no plans to wrestle, but when a character that gets that hot, and she's quite young still, so you think eventually they're gonna want to wrestle and try and get some payoff out of that. And that's where Luna came in. I mean, Luna, I think she deserves a lot of credit for really carrying Sable through this. I mean, Sable was not a wrestler, she wasn't really an athlete, so it was what it was. I mean, obviously I can tell this match was really rehearsed, like really rehearsed, but so it should have been. Sable didn't really know what she was doing, so she had some pros around it to really help her. I feel like Goldust and Mero did a really good job, and they're in the ring of trying to hold this match together. But it was really all about the hot tag of Sable coming in, getting a licks and getting the pinfall over Luna. I mean, just a really entertaining match, you know. And then for some reason, I'm still not to this day not sure why, The Rock versus Ken Shamrock was a really short match, like 3 minutes long or something. But I don't think anyone was carrying an injury or anything like that. But I think this was more angle more than anything, because obviously they did the dusty finish between Rock and Shamrock at the Royal Rumble. They did a similar finish here where it looked like Shamrock had won the Intercontinental title, but the decision got reversed. I mean, there was a big spot, obviously, because this was important the next night on Raw, where Shamrock had the Rock and the ankle lock. Farouk was going to help him, but then he didn't, so that obviously led to the Nation breaking up the next night in Raw. But obviously it was a big time for The Rock. Obviously he'd come off the Rocky cask. I need to stop saying obviously, don't I? I mean, I keep saying that all the time. Right, I'm going to try and not say obviously unless I absolutely have to with the rest of this video. So, The Rock came off the Rocky Maivia thing, didn't work out, turned heel, joined the Nation, got the Intercontinental title back, and then eventually morphed into The Rock. It was really good. Then I think the last 3 matches were all cool. New Age Outlaws versus Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie in a dumpster match. Now this is obviously... Oh, fuck! I've already done it, bastard. Right. Well, that failed. Anyway. So dumpster match, Cactus, Chainsaw, New Age Outlaws. The object is simple: put your opponent inside the dumpsters. Now, of course, this stems from that great angle on Raw with the New Age Outlaws trap Cactus and Chainsaw on the dumpster, and then pushed them off the stage on Raw. I mean, that got New Age Outlaws a lot of heat. At the time, the New Age Outlaws were just so hot, it wasn't even funny. And it really came out of nowhere, just in late 1997. They teamed up Double J, Jesse James, and Rockabilly. Then all of a sudden, they become the hottest tag team in years. It's just kind of crazy to think about now. I suppose to put a modern equivalent on it would be like Apollo Crews and Zack Ryder all of a sudden just becoming a tag team out of nowhere, and then becoming like the top team in the company. Just crazy stuff. You gotta give it WWF credit. I mean, in those early years, you really give the New Age Outlaws a lot. I mean, they worked the Road Warriors, and the Road Warriors put them over. Like, I don't think they'd ever put anyone over before. They're not now. They're in with hardcore legends like Cactus Jack and Terry Funk. And that was cool that Terry Funk got a WrestleMania match at this stage of his career, coming off the death matches of Japan, the ECW run. Because this was because Funk was at WrestleMania 2, but that was like 12 years earlier. So yeah, it was just a really, really entertaining hardcore brawl. The type of stuff you saw quite often in the Attitude Era. And Cactus and Chainsaw won the tag team title, so big 2 matches on this show. First up, Undertaker versus Kane, the big showdown. I mean, this was a long time coming. This is one of the best built matches in WrestleMania history. For me, personally, for streak matches, I thought the build up to WrestleMania 26 with Shawn Michaels and the career and all that was just a little bit better. But this is definitely number 2. I mean, I'll probably talk about Undertaker and Kane build-ups in other videos, so won't go into huge details. But obviously, I've done it again, haven't I? So it stemmed around the whole Paul Bearer having the big secret of the Undertaker, and then it revealed that Undertaker had burnt a funeral home down when he was a kid, and that killed his parents and his brother Kane. Except Kane was not dead; he's been alive all this time, and only Paul Bearer knew about it. And then the big monster brother Kane shows up at the WWF for Bad Blood to cost Undertaker the match. Then the great storyline of Undertaker not wanting to fight his brother, and Kane vowing to destroy every WWF superstar. Undertaker does it. And then they briefly tease getting back together, and then they turned on him at Royal Rumble 1998 and burnt him alive in the casket. So that brought the Undertaker back about 6 weeks later, and he finally accepted the challenge. So yeah, just the build-up was great. I think the match was very good. I don't think it was an awesome match. As far as Undertaker Kane match, it's easily the best one they ever had. I mean, the matches went downhill a bit after this, but this is a really entertaining big match. I think it was more of a great story rather than a great match, because they told an awesome story of Kane being just as powerful as the Undertaker, and nobody really tamed the Undertaker before like Kane. And then they've Kane kicked out of 2 tombstones, which back in 1998 was big stuff. I mean, now it's not that big a deal because everybody kicked out of everybody's finisher nowadays, but Kane kicking out the tombstone was shocking in itself because it's never been done before. Then to kick out of a second tombstone was absolutely unheard of. And it took 3 tombstones for the Undertaker to beat Kane. So, yes, the Undertaker won, but Kane was majorly enhancing this match as well. Then obviously the big main event, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels with Iron Mike Tyson as a special guest enforcer. I'm not going to go into big detail about the Tyson ring because I think that's been talked about, documented. It was really awesome stuff. All I'll say, Tyson, whatever the WF paid him, Tyson was worth every single penny of that. Because the mainstream publicity they got for having Mike Tyson on the show was immense. I mean, at the time, in 1998, Mike Tyson, one of the most recognisable faces on the planet. I mean, that's absolutely true. And obviously, this is I keep saying it again. The famous match where Shawn Michaels went into a broken back. And that's no exaggeration. Shawn Michaels had completely fucked his back up at Rumble 1998. Then, of course, after this match, didn't wrestle for another 4 years. So, by rights, Shawn Michaels really shouldn't have been in the ring. So, it was impressive that he actually had a match at WrestleMania. The fact it was good as it was really just a testament to how talented Shawn Michaels really was. It wasn't the best match they could have had. I mean, because I keep doing it again, right? I need to stop it. I can't stop doing it. Shawn Michaels had a big back injury, and because Austin wasn't that far removed from being dropped in his head at SummerSlam 1997, so Austin was far from 100%, but they had a really entertaining match nonetheless. I mean, one of the biggest matches, for me, probably one of the biggest matches in WWF history. Certainly one of the most important matches in WWF history. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin finally going over to become the WWF champion, and it was just off to the races after that, really. I mean, Austin was a champion and never looked back. WWF went on to do absolutely record business after this, and had a super, super hot 2 or 3 years of the Attitude Era. You might have heard that little thing called the Attitude Era. So for me, the Attitude Era had started in late 1997, but I think this is where that was launching to a brand new level. I think this was the last remnants of the New Generation era going away, and obviously with Austin being anointed the man now, just went great stuff after that. So yeah, I love this WrestleMania. I think it really is a classic. Coming in number 3, yeah, this is where I'm going to get the most stick, but I don't really give a shit. It's my video and my opinions and my views and nobody else's. And that's WrestleMania 10 in 1994, Madison Square Garden. Yeah, this is all about childhood memories, really, to be honest. I mean, come on. I mean, most people overrate the shows that they grew up watching as a kid, didn't they? Let's just be honest, and if you say otherwise, you're a liar. And this is probably one of the most defining shows from my childhood years, watching the WWF in the early 90s. So, everyone has the first WrestleMania, right? What was my first WrestleMania? WrestleMania 9. So yeah, my first ever WrestleMania was a really horrible WrestleMania. So this is kind of the defining WrestleMania of my childhood years. God, I love this show. I mean, yes, I'm just going to say, yes, there has been better WrestleManias than this. So I'm not going to deny that, and I'm not saying there wasn't. There absolutely was. But for me, even in a dark time in the business, they pulled out a really awesome show here, with obviously 2 of the best matches in WrestleMania history, and a really, really cool moment at the end, which I'll talk about in a sec. And it just blew me mind when I was thinking, last week. Last week was it 25 years since this show took place. Holy crap, that is weird. This show took place 25 years ago. I mean, just mind boggled a little bit, really, by how long I've been watching wrestling, all that. But yeah, I just have so much fun memories of this show as a kid, and it's stuck with me an adult. I mean, yeah, granted, a lot of the undercard was not good. I'm not going to deny that. Absolutely not. But for me, oh god, obviously, I talked about this last week, so I won't go into too much big detail. The opening match between Bret Hart and Owen Hart, I mean, needless to say, just reiterate once again, this was a classic, one of the best matches of all time. The best WrestleMania opener ever. The best WWE opener ever. In fact, fuck it. Best wrestling pay-per-view opener of all time. And that's WWE. That's WCW. That's New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's TNA. You name it. I cannot think of a better opening match for WrestleMania, for a wrestling pay-per-view, period, than the Bret and Owen pay-per-view at WrestleMania 10. So after that, I mean, yeah, obviously, some of the undercard was not good. I mean, Doink and so ironically enough, Luna was in a mixed tag match again at WrestleMania 10, as she was at WrestleMania 14. Although this time it was kind of a twist. It wasn't necessarily a man versus mum. So they had Doink and Dink the Clown. Who was Dink the Clown, you asked? Dink the Clown, Doink's midget sidekick, obviously silly. So instead of Doink, they just called him Dink. Yeah. That's how sophisticated the product was at the time. You get Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon, because I guess a midget and a woman are equal in the WWF's mind. I don't know what they were thinking. To be honest, I would have much rather just it was Bam Bam versus Doink. I think that would have been better. I mean, I don't think it really needed to be a mixed tag team match at all. Of Bam Bam and Doink, they've been feuding from right before Survivor Series. Yeah, and like I say, with it was just them two 1-on-1. I think the match would have been a lot better. Then you got Randy Savage versus Crush in a False Count Anywhere match. I really like this match. I mean, it gets a lot of bad reviews. I mean, I've actually seen people give it duds and stuff like that as well. But I thought it was an entertaining match. I mean, yeah, the rules were a bit what? So there was a Falls Count Anywhere match. So say you win the match in the aisle or whatever as Crush did. So you get the fall, and then the person who loses has 60 seconds to get back into the ring. So really not sure what they were thinking with that. It was kind of confusing. I mean, I don't think they ever did anything like this ever again. But I think at the time we never really saw matches like Falls Count Anywhere matches in WWF. So it was kind of interesting, and of course this really was Savage's last hurrah in the WWF. Not 100% certain this is a fact, but I think this is Savage's last televised WWF match. He may have wrestled on a Raw or something after this, but off the top of my head, I can't think of the one he did. I think the Savage Crush feud in 93-94 was pretty good, though. I mean, I did really like Crush's heel turn on Savage in 1993, joined it with Mr. Fuji, and changed his look up a bit at what was then known in wrestling circles as Evil Crush. Well, the match was good, though. I think entertaining enough match with Macho Man going over. Then you got Alundra Blaze versus Leilani Kai. And think about this, guys. The one person on the WrestleMania card that also wrestled on WrestleMania 10 was Leilani Kai. So have a look at the WrestleMania 10 card, right? No, the WrestleMania 1 card, sorry. Then think yourself, which one of these do you think wrestled at WrestleMania 10 years later? I dare say Leilani Kai would be one of the last people you would have picked. It's just a weird fact. I thought it was a strange fact anyway. Matches that's just really short though, like 3 minutes long. They did the best given the time they had, but the ref just did not take the women's division seriously at the time. And here we are, like 25 years later, and the women are about to main event WrestleMania. So different time, guys, different time. The match was okay. It was pretty bad, when I'll admit it. Then the other WWF tag team titles, Quebecers versus Men in the Mission. Well, it's a decent match actually. Not the best match, of course, but I think it was definitely decent. Not sure about Men on a Mission being the ones that get the title shot at WrestleMania, but that's another issue. Quebecers, thought they were a really good team at the time. I mean, I thought they were really underrated, actually, now looking back in history. And how weird is it now? This is 25 years ago, and Pierre is now a big star in the independent scene as PCO, Pierre Carlo Lay. Just can't. And he's like 50-year-old now. That means he was like 25 then. So yeah, I just remember watching Pierre 25 years ago. Now it's weird that he's one of the big stars in Ring of Honor now. Just kind of weird, really. And obviously Jacques Rougeau, of course, was a veteran at the time, being in the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, and then famously the Mountie not too long before this. The match was okay. Finish was kind of weak though, if Men on the Mission winning them by count out. So admittedly the finish was kind of weak. Oh, the match was perfectly fine. No, it wasn't a classic or anything like that, but definitely don't think it was a bad match by any means stretch of the imagination. What was a bad match though was the first WWF title match of the night with Yokozuna versus Lex Luger. One thing was cool though, because both title matches had a special guest referee, and that was a real good source of intrigue. I mean, a lot of people were interested in that. The referee number one was Mr. Perfect, who we hadn't seen for a while. I think Mr. Perfect disappeared at the end of 1993. I think he had a flare-up of his back injury. But now he was back for this WrestleMania, and he played a major role. Now this match, this match was not good. This is a pretty awful match, to be honest with you. So this stems obviously the whole Lex Luger slamming Yokozuna in July the 4th, 1993, the USS Intrepid. And of course, famously, SummerSlam 1993, Lex Luger, because he got the mega push. I mean, he really did. I mean, I've talked about before, other people have talked about, we don't need to get into the whole Lex Express thing, but Luger gets a monster push, goes to SummerSlam 1993, and everyone's like, oh yeah, Luger's winning the title here, but no, Luger did not win the title here, actually. He won by count out, because apparently Vince was thinking he wanted to hold it off and do it at WrestleMania, but after that, Lex Luger cooled off significantly. Bret Hart got more popular, and then he went with Bret. Well, this match was just not good at all. I mean, unless you really like the long nerve holds, which I imagine you don't, Because seriously, Yokozuna had that nerve hold on Lex Luger forever. I mean, it was probably not that long, but I felt like he had the nerve hold on for like 10 minutes. It was probably, it was just like, what? It was like, obviously, you looked like you just couldn't be asked to really do anything. So they just put a long nerve hold on. And the match was awful. The finish, though, with Mr. Perfect unfairly disqualifying Lex Luger. Now, there was actually a purpose behind this. Where I think, one, Vince didn't want to outright bury Lex Luger, so he wanted to protect him somewhat. Two, this was supposed to lead to Lex Luger and Mr. Perfect feuding down the line into the summer months. But I think physically Mr. Perfect just wasn't up for it. I mean, his injuries flared up again. They might have wrestled on a couple of house shows, I'm not certain. And I think they did, I don't think, did they do anything on television after this? I don't know, I can't remember. But yeah, it definitely was going to lead to Lex Luger and Mr. Perfect feud in the summer. Probably having a SummerSlam match, but of course, Mr. Perfect's back injuries flared up again, and Mr. Perfect disappeared from the WWF again and didn't come back till Survivor Series 1995 as a commentator. But yeah, the match was awful. And then after that, we got a squash match between Earthquake and Adam Bomb. I guess because they were running low on time, so they just had a squash match. Then Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, the ladder match I talked about so much last week in the Fear 5 WrestleMania matches. 5-star match, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. One of the most innovative matches of all time. So there you go, guys. You have 2 5-star matches on one WrestleMania. That's just really awesome. And I think that's what makes this... Because obviously the undercard stuff could have been better, but I think just having Bret and Owen as the opener, and then Shawn and Razor ladder match on the same card. How can you not say this is a good WrestleMania of 2 matches of that quality on the same card, you know? And then, obviously, so it looks back, obviously one of the biggest matches, most important matches of all time, the Shawn Razor ladder match. Then we've got the main event, Bret Hart versus Yokozuna for the WWF Championship. This is a good match, not a great match. I definitely think it was a little bit better than the WrestleMania 9 match. So the match was good, not great. Went about 10 minutes of Yokozuna wrestling twice. Because Yokozuna, he was pushing 600 pounds at the time, so stamina was not really his bag. But I think Bret did a pretty good job of trying to have a good match with Yokozuna. What I did love though, the whole knee injury that Bret Hart got in the match with Owen Hart. He sold the injury the entire night. Where I think Peter should try and sell knee injuries better nowadays. Becky Lynch. But yeah, I just love the way Bret sold the knee injury. And I'm going to sound like an old man here, but why can't wrestlers sell like Bret Hart did anymore? I mean, you know, I think selling's just a lost art nowadays. And for the finish, a lot of people don't like this finish, but I really do. Though Yokozuna's going for the bonsai drop. Then he loses his balance, falls off the rope, Bret moves out the way. Yokozuna knocks himself out, and then Bret wins the title. I mean, a lot of people don't like that, but I always liked how Bret won a lot of his matches in different ways, like with reversals and things like that. So obviously with Bret being like the size he was and Yoko being the size he was, Bret didn't dominate Yokozuna, Bret didn't beat up Yokozuna, Bret outlasted Yokozuna, Bret beat him by beating him by stamina, and then Bret becomes a WWF champion. That was an awesome moment. I fucking love that moment. I mean, come on. Probably one of the greatest moments of Bret Hart's entire career, because the whole debacle of WrestleMania 9, losing the title to Yokozuna, having his thunder stolen by Hulk Hogan, and then getting passed up by Vince because Vince wanted to do the Lex Luger project. And then, but then Vince, to his credit, did everything he could to make it all about Bret Hart. I mean, this was Bret Hart's night, and I love the ending with all the baby faces coming out and endorse Bret, putting them on the shoulders, celebrating from that sort of thing. I mean, all the baby faces, then people like Burt Reynolds, who was a ring announcer, came and shook Bret's hand. Gorilla Monsoon did it, then Vince himself did it. And I just love the ending. Owen Hart stood in the alleyway just glaring at Bret like, you motherfucker. Because even though Owen Hart, biggest night of his life, finally beats his brother Bret, Bret goes on to win the WWF title and steals the spotlight once again. And Owen's just looking like Bret like, you never beat me, did you, Bret? And that, of course, led to Bret and Owen wrestling for months on the house shows after that. So a really, really great moment to close out this WrestleMania. Yeah, just great memories of this show. I mean, like I said, just to be honest, there's definitely been better WrestleManias from a wrestling standpoint, but can't understand how much this show meant to me as a kid, and I still love watching it today. Coming in number 2, which is obviously I'm going to give away number 1, but I say what number 2 is because I think these are 2 WrestleManias that most people have as the top 2, and it's just whether you put it number 1 or number 2 is your prerogative. But for me, number 2, 2003 WrestleMania 19. I mean, what a show this was. I mean, from top to bottom, a really stacked card. Just a really great card. We had big moments, great wrestling matches. Just a great time, really. I mean, obviously at the time, WCW had been down for about 2 years, and as a result, WWF had a really, really stacked roster. I mean, up and down the card. This is the first WrestleMania of the brand extensions, or get a Raw and a SmackDown roster. So apart from maybe Sting, apart from Sting and Goldberg came in the next night, anyone who was a name in the wrestling business that was still active was in the WWE at the time, because at the time there was nowhere to go. WCW gone. NWA TNA was a thing. Well, come on, that wasn't really a big thing. There was New Japan, I suppose, but then you had the WWE. So this is the first WrestleMania of the brand extension, the first WWE WrestleMania, because obviously WWF became WWE in 2002. And wow, yeah, just they put on one hell of a card here. I mean, such a consistent card as well. Probably one of the best paced WrestleManias of all time as well. Just had a bit of everything. So kick off with Matt Hardy versus Rey Mysterio for the Cruiserweight title. I mean, that was a fantastic opener. It was a sprint. It was a 5-6 minute sprint, but they packed a ton of action in those 5-6 minutes. Yeah, can't really complain. I mean, would I've liked to see it go longer? Absolutely, but of course, WrestleMania, you've got all these matches. Sometimes some matches have to go short, and this was one of them. But to the ultimate credit, Matt and Mysterio did a really good job out there, trying to maximise the minutes and get as much out there as he could. They had a better match, the one where Rey Mysterio won the title in SmackDown in San Diego. I think that was June of 2003, I think. Can't remember the exact date. So it was a surprise that Matt Hardy went over in this one. This was during the Matt Hardy version 1 character, which I thought was a really awesome character looking back now. And this was, of course, Rey Mysterio's first WrestleMania match. And then all these years later, Rey's wrestling at WrestleMania this year. So I think Rey's one of the few guys that are on this card that are wrestling at WrestleMania this year. Match number 2, The Undertaker versus The Big Show and A-Train. The match was alright. It was definitely the worst match of the night, but I don't think it was a terrible match by any means. I mean, to put it this way, I've certainly seen worse streak matches than this. Although this could have been a fucking awful match though, because originally it was going to be a tag team match with The Undertaker and Nathan Jones versus The Big Show and the A-Train. Nathan Jones is one of those curious, what the hell? And Nathan Jones, this 7-foot Australian monster who'd done time in jail, was a bodybuilder and wrestled a little bit. So he basically, it was one of those classic cases of them signing Nathan Jones because he was big and he looked impressive, before they actually bothered to see if he could actually wrestle or not. And it turned out Nathan Jones was a classic case of a big guy trying to get into wrestling because he looks good, but he doesn't actually have any talent. Yeah, Nathan Jones sucked. And I think by the time we got to WrestleMania, WF realised they couldn't have Nathan Jones in this match, or he would have absolutely stunk the joint out. So they did an angle on Sunday Night Heat where the FBI injured and took Nathan Jones out. So Undertaker had to take on the Big Show and A-Train in a handicap match. And in the streak, that was the only handicap match in the streak. And yeah, I think it was the only match that wasn't a one-on-one match, period, with the Undertaker in the streak. And the match was fine. It was alright. I don't think it was a terrible match by any means. Of course, the Undertaker won, but whatever. Then we got a good women's match, good triple threat match with Victoria, Jazz and Trish Stratus for the WWE Women's title. I mean, obviously they don't get the sort of time that women get nowadays. They got like about 9 minutes, but I thought they had a really good match at the time. I think all 3 women are really good. Trish Stratus, of course, you know about her. Victoria, I feel like, is the most underrated women's wrestler in WWE history. I mean, I really honestly do. I mean, I think Victoria in her prime now would be pretty awesome. To be fair, I think she still wrestles a little bit as Lisa Marie Varon. She was in TNA a few years ago as Tara. I wouldn't mind seeing, because I wouldn't mind seeing her come back and maybe doing a one-off match or something like that. I think Jazz was also an underrated wrestler. Obviously, she didn't have the WWE Diva look at the time, but I think she was a badass woman. I think she was a pretty good women's wrestler. And Trish Stratus gets a big win to win the women's title at WrestleMania. Good match. Then we get another triple threat match, this time with a tag team variety for the WWE tag team titles on SmackDown with Team Angle, Charlie Hash, Shelton Benjamin, Los Guerreros, and Chris Benoit and Rhino. Good match. I mean, this was definitely a case of not having anything really for Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero to do, so they put them in a tag team scenario and put them on at WrestleMania. I'm led to believe originally it was going to be Chris Benoit and Edge in this match, but of course Edge had to go away and have neck surgery and missed this, and he missed WrestleMania 20 as well. But he missed 2 WrestleManias because of that neck injury. But yeah, good match. Again, relatively short. I think it went like 8 minutes or something like that. I don't have the exact match time in front of me, but it was definitely less than 10 minutes, I'm certain of that. And they packed a lot of action in there. You had veterans like Benoit and Eddie. I think Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, I think they're definitely an underrated tag team looking back in history now. I think history's definitely forgotten those guys, but those guys are pretty awesome, to be fair. I mean, I did really like Haas and Benjamin's Team Angle, and they got a big win here, and that was quite credibility enhancing win for them. And then for everything else on here is a big match. I mean, there's only one match left in the card that I had a problem with, which I'll get into. But obviously, for me, the show stealer, WrestleMania 19, Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. This was a classic. Absolute classic. I mean, Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania. This one probably gets lost in Shawn Michaels' awesome WrestleMania matches. Because when you think of Shawn at WrestleMania, you probably think of the 2 Undertaker matches. You probably think of the Razor Ramon ladder match. You probably think of the Kurt Angle match at WrestleMania 21. And you probably think of the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. But this one gets overlooked a little bit in that regard. I mean, and for me, this was maybe Chris Jericho's best ever match. Although I'm kind of leaning towards the Kenny Omega Wrestle Kingdom matches. For me, anyway, the best match of Chris Jericho's career. But this one's definitely close second. This defining night for Chris Jericho, because Chris Jericho had main event in the previous WrestleMania against Triple H, but it wasn't really the main event. Hogan Rock was, and the match was a really big disappointment. And Chris Jericho just came out of the whole thing looking really weak. So a year later, he's wrestling Shawn Michaels in what's not considered one of the top matches of the night. I mean, I would say this was probably it was the 5th match from the top, so I'd say probably the 5th biggest match of the show. But they had the best match of the show. So this was a match I think everyone was talking about when WrestleMania 19 was over. I mean, this is a match I was really hyped to see. This was Shawn Michaels' first WrestleMania back in 5 years since WrestleMania 14. And Chris Jericho had made a name for himself in Shawn's absence. And I always thought Shawn and Chris Jericho had a lot of similarities, like similar size, similar look, similar style, similar attitude. In many ways, Chris Jericho emulated Shawn Michaels. But I think at a certain point, Chris Jericho became a star in his own right. And I think the story build up this match was great. The match was fantastic. I mean, this was when, because Shawn Michaels, he came back in SummerSlam 2002. But there definitely wasn't going to be a full-time thing. They were just playing it by the ear at this point. So then he had his world title reign. And I think while he was there, they thought, well, they might as well get a WrestleMania match out of him. Let's give him at least one WrestleMania match, which he did here in this match. Then when they realised that, wow, Shawn Michaels is still pretty fucking awesome. Then I think it was after this that Shawn Michaels started wrestling more on a full-time basis. Then, of course, went on to steal nearly every WrestleMania he was on after that. Well, yeah, awesome match. Then Triple H, Booker T, I mean, I don't want to get into this one. The build-up, I wouldn't even try to defend the build-up of this one. It was fucking awful. I mean, yeah, it was racist, the build-up, wasn't it? Let's just be honest, it was. No doubt about it. And for me, the match was alright. Don't think the match was great or really that good. The match was okay. It was solid. It was a solid wrestling match, I would say. Nothing that exciting. I mean, this was Triple H 2003. this was definitely the worst run of Triple H's entire career. But they finished, so oh, fuck off. They can fuck off if they finish. So after Triple H basically madly racially abused Booker T in the build-up, I mean, he never said the N-word or anything like that, but saying people like you don't get me world champion, talking about his nappy hair, offering to be his limo driver and things like that, just really degrading throughout the build-up. So if you have all that, Booker T has to go over, right, and Triple H has to get what's coming to him. Way in WWE land, Triple H hits the pedigree, and then I swear to God, because I'm actually that much of a loser that I timed this when I watched this match recently, Triple H takes 22 seconds between the pedigree and then pinning Booker T, then winning clean. Is just like, yeah, fuck you, you prick. For me, this was probably the worst of the Triple H reign of terror. This is probably one of the worst things Triple H has ever done, you know. At least the story they're trying to tell with Kofi Kingston now, you'd think Kofi Kingston's probably going to go over this year at WrestleMania. I hope so anyway, because this is, oh God, just bad stuff. Then the last three matches, what was great about this WrestleMania, these last three matches, any of the three could have conceivably been the main event, and no one would have complained, I don't think. So these were three really big matches in their own different ways. And yeah, I think you could have put any one of these three matches on last at WrestleMania, and I think fans would have been happy with it. First one was Hulk Hogan versus Mr. McMahon in a street fight. But yeah, this match really... Oh, I think this match over-delivered anyway. I mean, because on paper, it's Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon in 2003. I mean, Hogan was 49, and I think Vince was about 56, maybe at the time, maybe 56, 57, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I think that could have been this match could have been awful, but I think obviously the street fight rules helped a lot because there was a lot of smoke and mirrors in there. They were allowed to hide the weaknesses and emphasize the strengths. Because if they had a normal wrestling match, it would have sucked, wouldn't it? Because it's a street fight, they could use blood, weapons, run-ins, and that sort of thing, and they could hide the weaknesses and have a really entertaining match. And this match was entertaining. I mean, probably one of my favourite Vince matches. My favourite Vince match is either the Shawn at WrestleMania 22 or the Shane at WrestleMania 17. But this match was, yeah, it was good. I mean, both guys bled. They used a lot of weapons. Great storytelling, some really good psychology and selling on display. I love the spot where Vince climbs a ladder and leg drops Hulk Hogan from the table, as though he's fucking Jeff Hardy or something. That's probably one of the last spots you would have expected to see in this match, but it kind of worked. I mean, I liked it anyway. Then you got the random running by Roddy Piper. That was cool. That was really unexpected. Probably one of the most underrated returns ever, actually, to be fair. Of course, the Hulkster wins. It was a really good match. And on record, I mean, Hulk Hogan's last ever match at WrestleMania, believe it or not. Obviously, you think at 65 years old now, with all the back surgery he's had, you'd think 99.99999% chance Hulk Hogan's never going to wrestle again. Then he did the run at WrestleMania 21. After that, was a host of WrestleMania 30. Then he was part of the Sting Triple H match at 31. And he's probably going to be there in some capacity this year. I don't know exactly what. But what I like to believe, he will be part of WrestleMania weekend. But yeah, obviously Hulk Hogan meant so much to WrestleMania over the years. And this was his last WrestleMania match. And it was a good one to go out on. Then you got really match. It was the end of an era. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock for one final time. Obviously the last match of the WrestleMania trilogy. Yeah, and of course ultimately Stone Cold's last match ever. And it's been 16 years now, and he still hasn't come back. I mean, so it looks like Stone Cold's going to be the only one who ever really stays retired. Because even Shawn Michaels came back for one match last year. And for me, I think this was the absolute final end of the Attitude. The final stage of the Attitude Era being taken away. Because Attitude Era was all about... The Attitude Era, I think, ended at WrestleMania 17. But I think there was still a little remnants digging around us. So I think this was really this should have been the official, like, that's it, the Attitude Era is definitely over for good now, it's never coming back. Because Stone Cold and The Rock were the two defining guys of that era, and now they are wrestling each other one last time at WrestleMania in Austin's last match, and essentially The Rock was more or less retiring after this. I mean, yeah, he had one more match with Goldberg at Backlash, and then he didn't wrestle again until WrestleMania 20. Then after that, of course, was gone from the WWE for 7 years after that, didn't come back to the ring to Survivor Series 2011. And obviously this revolves around Austin nearly dying the night before. I mean, infamous story, Austin was working out, his heart rate was going boom, 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 boom. Austin thought he was going to die. He was rushed to hospital that night because it all really revolved around his neck injuries and the anxiety he was going through related to that. And this was it. Austin, his body had just finally said no, enough's enough. Austin had been wrestling on borrowed time since 1987 when he got dropped in his head by Owen Hart at SummerSlam. And this was it for Austin. He's going to face his biggest rival, The Rock, one last time at WrestleMania, and he puts The Rock over clean as a whistle. Now, as far as the trilogy goes, I would say this was the worst match of the three, but I still think it was a great match nonetheless. So obviously to rank it, I would go WrestleMania 17 1, WrestleMania 15 2, and this one last. But this is a great match as well. I just love the ending. Stone Cold walking out after the match with the fans cheering him and all that. Great end to his career, So after all this, you got Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship in the main event. Now, the question was, could these guys deliver? Yes, and it's a miracle he did, because Kurt Angle, of course, broke his neck in the build-up of this match. So Kurt Angle was going to this match with a major neck injury, was going to get neck surgery after this, yada yada yada. So similar to Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14, Kurt Angle's going to the main event of WrestleMania 19 with a major injury. I mean, by all accounts, Kurt Angle should not have been in the ring that night, but he was. I mean, he was tough as nails, absolutely tough as nails, no doubt about that. So Kurt wanted to have this match, he wanted to do it, he thought he could do it. But let's be honest, this was Kurt's only chance to main event WrestleMania, and obviously he never did after this. So if Kurt Angle hadn't done this match, he would have missed his one shot to main event WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar. And to say this match was as great as it was is fucking miracle and testament to how good Kurt Angle was. I mean, this match was a great wrestling match, I thought. Really, really enjoyed this match. If Angle was 100% fit, God knows how good it would have been. Could have been a 5-star match if Angle was 100% fit. Quite probably, to be fair. I mean, I don't deny that for a second. I mean, everyone wanted to see this match. This match was being built up tremendously for about 5 solid months. Everyone was wanting to see this match. I think by the time when Brock Lesnar came into the WWE, everyone was talking about Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle as the match you wanted to see. Obviously, both amateur wrestlers and all that, similar backgrounds. The two best athletes in the company for me, definitely. And for me, the best two athletes in the history of the WWE. Kurt Angle deserves ultimate respect for that, going through that match. I mean, he really didn't have to. I mean, he put himself through tremendous risk for this. And just luckily that he came out the match not really any worse than what he came in. Because he really could have been paralysed or something like that. I mean, was that serious that he really could have been paralysed if it went wrong? And then, of course, Brock Lesnar nearly did paralyse himself in the finish when he went for the shooting star press. Fucked it up, landed on his head, and holy fuck, I'm surprised he didn't break his neck. I think the theory is that the only reason Brock Lesnar didn't break his neck is because he's got such a thick, powerful neck that he was able to save himself. And of course, Brock Lesnar won. The cap-off was probably, well, I'm not saying probably, the most dominant rookie year in WWE history. Debut the night after WrestleMania 18, winning the 2002 King of the Ring, destroying Hulk Hogan and SmackDown, beating The Rock for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam 2002, beating The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell, No Mercy, winning the 2003 Royal Rumble, and winning his second WWE Championship, his first WrestleMania in the main event, all when he was 25 years old. Just incredible. So I'm going to imagine that nearly everybody watches WrestleMania, but if you haven't, absolute highest recommendation. One of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. Hell, one of the greatest WWE pay-per-views of all time, period. And to the surprise of precisely nobody, number one, of course, it is that one. It's WrestleMania 17. For me, this is a defining WrestleMania of all time. My favourite WrestleMania of all time. Hell, my favourite wrestling show of all time, period. I mean, wow. I just cannot understand how good this WrestleMania was at a super hot time in the business as well. Probably one of the peak times for me as a fan. I mean, I was 14 years old when this show took place, so this was definitely during my prime watching wrestling years, where I would never miss a show. I'd watch every Raw, I'd watch every SmackDown. I even watched Sunday Night Heat every week. That's how dedicated I was. And sometimes I would even tape Raw, then watch it again through the week, and then tape over the new Raw over the old Raw. And yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch Raw and SmackDown at least twice a week. I mean, every pay-per-view. People of a certain age remember this, sneaking out of bed and watching WWF pay-per-views live at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK. You had to hide from your parents, make sure your parents didn't hear you sneaking down, watching all the WWE pay. I mean, I did that for years. I did that. And then obviously when I was an adult, I could just do what I wanted then. But yeah, and then you would go to bed 4 o'clock, get up at about 7, 8 o'clock to go to school the next day, and you were inevitably tired. I mean, it's just awesome times. And this show, wow, from top to bottom, an amazing card of wrestling. Not a perfect show by any means. There are flaws to it, which I'll get into, but just the roster was stacked at the time. They came up with a stacked card. I think the biggest takeaway for me is there's some, and I'll explain more when I talk about the show. There really is something for everybody on this show. I mean, the variety of wrestling styles and wrestling match types on this show is just tremendous. And I think this just makes that show that much better. So we kick off with Chris Jericho, William Regal for the Intercontinental title. Solid match. Not a great match or anything, but definitely a solid match. Didn't get a ton of time though. It would have, but and obviously probably one of the worst matches of the night, but it was a really solid match. Then for me, the only really bad match on this show, for me anyway, was the 6-man tag Right Ascension versus AP and Taz. This just did not feel like WrestleMania quality at all. Felt like SmackDown quality or something like that. It felt, yeah, in a nutshell, it felt like a TV match on a WrestleMania. Not a terrible match. I mean, I've definitely seen much worse matches at WrestleMania, but definitely it didn't feel important. Only got like 4 minutes, and then it was just like whatever. Then I think the undercard was really, really good. So you had a hardcore match between Big Show, Kane, and Raven for the Hardcore Championship. God, this match was, if nothing else, it was entertaining. And, you know, it was, because those at the time hardcore matches were all the range, brawling around the arena and in the parking lot and things like that. It was just so cool. I mean, so the bulk of this match took place backstage, and it was an entertaining match. It wasn't meant to be an awesome match, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, you had a great story of Raven, the Hardcore Champion, and what the hell's he got him into? The two men going after his title, Kane and the Big Show. Holy crap! So yeah, some really entertaining stuff. I mean, the whole thing of Kane chasing Raven in the golf cart, just classic. So first, Raven tries to get away in the golf cart, but the Big Show's on the back of the golf cart, so Raven loses control and crashes. And then Kane's chasing Raven in the golf cart and then drives over Raven's leg, which is just hilarious. Then a spot where Raven's thrown through the window. Kane the Big Show apparently able to break walls. So Kane the Big Show went through a wall, which, I think it looked silly, but it was kind of entertaining. Then they got back in the arena and did that big spot off the stage, and then Kane leg drops off the stage onto Raven the Big Show. But if you watch closely, you can clearly see that Kane misses by loads. So it was really a bad spot. And then Kane wins the Hardcore title. Then you got Test and Eddie Guerrero for the European title. This was a good match. Not a great match, but definitely a good undercard match. Told a nice little story. pretty good big man versus small man match. And it was believable as well. I mean, I liked the way that he told the match. Eddie Guerrero out wrestling Test, going for his legs and that sort of thing. So Eddie Guerrero had a lot of offense against Test, but obviously the size difference. But I think it was believable because I think they saw that Eddie Guerrero was a better wrestler than Test, and that's why he could beat him type thing. Yeah, good match with Eddie Guerrero going over to win the European title. Then we got what was a squash match between Chyna and Ivory for the women's title. It made sense because Ivory had done a lot of awful things to Chyna, and now Chyna was finally getting revenge. She beat Ivory in like 2 minutes to become the WWF Women's Champion. Now I say the last 4 matches is what made this WrestleMania. Oh no, fucking hell, I missed one. Duh. I missed a match out. How the fuck did I miss that match out? One of the best matches of the night as well. Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. Now, this was the wrestling match of the night, so this was a match the people, the technical wrestling fans loved. What a fucking awesome match this was. Now, this match was literally thrown together last minute. It wasn't even made official until the Raw before WrestleMania, and it was basically the storyline as this. Chris Benoit doesn't have an opponent, Kurt Angle doesn't have an opponent, so we're going to wrestle at WrestleMania. Now this did lead to a lengthy feud between the two, as they feuded into Backlash and Judgment Day 2001, and obviously Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, so many awesome matches over the years. I think obviously Royal Rumble, I keep saying obviously, I can't stop. The defining one, obviously, Royal Rumble 2003, that is a classic, that's one of the best matches of all time. Then they had other matches like Unforgiven 2002, the cage match they had on Raw, the Ultimate Submission match at Backlash. This match was great, just started out as pure wrestling, just counter holds, trying to take each other down and all that. And what I loved when they'd go through a spot, then the fans were clapping like a Japanese crowd would, which that was really, really rare to see in a WWF show at the time. That was cool. Then it descended into the suplexes and all that sort of stuff. Kurt Angle went over, but yeah, this was a fantastic match. I mean, obviously there's bigger, more important matches on this show, but this match, yeah, great match. I love this match. Absolutely fantastic. Then we got, so after that, every other match is very important. So Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon in a street fight. This was so entertaining. This was what I like to call sports entertainment storytelling, where all these distractions, all these run-ins and all that great story. A lot of great twists and turns in this match. This was not a technical classic or anything, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was Vince and Shane McMahon with Mick Foley as a special guest referee. So there was so much going on in this match. Storytelling was outstanding, I thought. Vince was his absolute best as a piece of shit in this match. You could tell they were really laying into each other as well, which was cool. So great spots like Shane going off the top rope and missing through the table, and then all the shenanigans. Trish Stratus finally turns on Vince. Vince and Stephanie brought the aisle. This is the era of the comatose Linda McMahon. Oh my god, that storyline is ridiculous. Like literally absolutely ridiculous. So Linda was in a comatose state, and Vince was going to mess up, and then Mick Foley tries to, and then Vince lays out Mick Foley with a steel chair. Vince brings Linda into the ring to watch. Vince beat the crap out of Shane, which he was doing with trash cans. And then it was all a ruse. Linda wasn't doped up this time. Linda rose out of a chair, which one of the biggest pops of the night, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy to think about. Then Linda kicks Vince in the balls. Shane McMahon gets his licks in. Mick Foley comes back into the ring, starts wailing on Vince. Then for the first time, Shane McMahon did the coast to coast spot. You know, the one he's done so many times, where he goes one rope, drop kick right across the ring, kicks a trash can in the face. Although he blatantly stole that move from Rob Van Dam, who did it as a Van Terminator in ECW the year before. But it was the first time we'd ever seen it on a mainstream pay-per-view, and fans were wild for that, and Shane McMahon won. Such an entertaining match, of course. Now you got the car crash match of the night. This was just pure stunts and mayhem. TLC 2, Hardys versus Dudley Boys versus Edge and Christian. Of course, the culmination of an amazing era of tag team wrestling, in my opinion. I still think the 80s is probably the pinnacle of tag teams in the WWE, but This Hardy's, Dudley's, Edge and Christian rivalry from 2000 to 2001. Just awesome, awesome stuff. I mean, this goes back a long way. It really went back to No Mercy 99 for Hardys and Edge and Christian. And then the year before, the Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania 2000. And then the first TLC match at SummerSlam 2000. And this was the last time it was just these three teams in this environment. I mean, there was a one on SmackDown later on with Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho added to the mix. Then obviously after that, Edge and Christian split up. The Hardys split up and then got back together. And then the 2002 draft, the Dudleys split up, and then later in 2002, the Hardy Boys permanently split up this time. So really was the last time all these three teams were together in an environment like this. This had a little bit of a twist of entertaining runs between Rhino, Spike Dudley, and Lita, sorry. Yeah, this was basically what you expect. Stunt, car crash stuff. I mean, looking back now, it's just incredible. I mean, they raised the bar maybe too high at one point. Because I think at one point the expectations got to, okay, what they're going to do now is someone going to die in one of these matches. I think this is famous, obviously, the Jeff Hardy hanging off the belt spot of Edge and spearing. I mean, you've seen that spot on various highlight reels over the years, haven't you? I mean, just tremendous. And Edge and Christian go over there, so great match. And then we have a nice little break from the action in a concept I thought was cool as shit. Maybe not everyone would like this one, but I thought it was cool as shit. And it was called the Gimmick Battle Royal. And it was basically they were going to take a lot of the gimmicks from the past, put them in a Battle Royal. It was a nostalgia match. It was designed for light comic relief and some light fun. I think to break up the action, having two chaotic matches like we just saw with Shane and Vince in the TLC match, to try and bring the fans down a little bit before the two big matches. So because of that, we got some really interesting names in this match. So number one, we got the return to WWF of Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund, which that was cool. They're on commentary for this match. Now listen to some of the names that are in this match: Duke the Dumpster Droese, the Gobbledygooker, Tugboat, Brother Love was in this match. So Bruce Pritchard, Jim Cornette had a WrestleMania match. Michael Pierce Hayes. That was cool because this show's obviously in Houston, Texas, and obviously Texas is the Freebird Von Erich country. My God. So that was cool. Trying to think of some other names in this match. Off the top of me, One Man Gang was in there. The Bushwhackers were in there. I mean, the whole thing was done in about 2 or 3 minutes. It's probably the shortest battle royal in wrestling history because a lot of guys were like older at this point and couldn't really do a long match, so they just had the match go as quick as possible with the Iron Sheik going over. And the rumour about that is the reason Iron Sheik won is because he wasn't actually capable of taking a bump over the top rope, so they had the Iron Sheik go over. Then him and Slaughter got into a little brawl at the end. Now, 2 big matches in this WrestleMania. First up, The Undertaker versus Triple H. This was just a pure brawl. The intensity of this match was great. This is American Badass Undertaker. Triple H was, no pun intended, the absolute top of his game at the time. I think it's fair to say for me, Triple H was probably the best wrestler in the world at the time. I mean, I definitely believe that. Great match. I mean, I think the 27 and 28 matches were better than this, and obviously more famous because this was way later on the Undertaker's streak and all that. And both guys are bona fide legends by those matches took place. But this match shouldn't be slept on at all. I mean, this for me was, at this point in time, the best match in the streak. Undertaker, just a great brawl. The only thing I didn't like, which I thought was silly, was the referee being knocked out for like 7-8 minutes because the Undertaker elbow dropped him. But that's kind of just pro wrestling silliness. So this was a brawl around the arena. He went into the crowd and all that. Great spots with a sledgehammer. Busted the Undertaker wide open. And then the Undertaker goes on to beat Triple H to become 9-0 at WrestleMania. Great match. Then of course the main event, which I talked about in detail last week, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. I'm not going to go into big detail again. If you want to hear detailed thoughts about that, go refer back to last week's video. Just want to reiterate again, though, an absolute classic. One of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. And I said it last week and I say it again, the best WrestleMania main event of all time. Two icons at the peak of the popularity. Probably the peak of wrestling, to be honest, because this was after WF bought WCW the week before, and I think after this show there was a steady decline of their ratings and popularity. They've never really recovered from that and never really got back to that level again. But this match, of course, just on a card like this as well, there was a hell of a lot to live up to. All the awesome stuff we saw on the undercard before this. Could they deliver? And for me, a resounding yes. Just love this match. Not too crazy about the Austin heel turn, but we've talked about that before. No need to go on that again. And there you go. For me, the gold standard of WrestleMania is right there. WrestleMania 17. I mean, I'm going to assume that pretty much everyone's seen this WrestleMania. But if by something you haven't, get yourself on the Do Right Network right now and watch this show. I mean, you absolutely have to see it. And that's a wrap, guys. So that's another Fair Fights out the way for WrestleMania shows. And like I said in the intro, I mean, I can only pick 5 out of 34, you know. So a lot of your favourite WrestleManias aren't going to be on here. So please don't get upset because a WrestleMania that you think is awesome is not on this list. Really, it's just a subjective list, and this is for my personal opinions and my personal opinions only. Until next week, guys, peace.